Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to crack open one of the biggest breakthroughs in making AI smarter, more capable, and way more reliable. We're talking about giving AI the ability to not just think, but to actually do things. So let's start with a question you've probably asked yourself after chatting with an AI. Why do these sometimes state something that's completely wrong, but with so much confidence? If that's ever happened to you, you are definitely not alone. This whole thing is often called hallucination, and honestly, it's one of the biggest hurdles for AI right now.
To get to the bottom of these confident falsehoods, we have to look at a really fundamental limitation, something that most of these big language models have been stuck with since day one.
Okay, so picture this. Think of an AI like a brilliant student who's been locked inside a library. They've read and memorized every single book in there, but let's say all those books were published before 2022. They can answer any question based on that knowledge, no problem. But what happens when you ask about yesterday's news, or something that just wasn't in those books? Well, they can't exactly walk out the door and check the internet, right? Their knowledge is frozen in time. And that's the exact moment they start, making things up.
So that really sets up this contrast, doesn't it? On one side, you've got your standard AI, with its knowledge kind of locked in a jar. And on the other, you have the AI we actually need, one that can access the real world, use tools, and provide answers we can actually trust. The big question has always been, how do we get from one to the other?
Now, before we got the big breakthrough solution, developers found a pretty clever way to at least peek inside the AI's thinking process. It was a step in the right direction for sure, but ultimately, it just wasn't enough.
This was a technique called chain of thought prompting. The idea was simple, but really powerful. Instead of just asking for an answer, you ask the AI to show its work, to explain its reasoning step by step. It made the AI's whole process much more transparent, which was a huge leap forward. But, and this is a big but, here's the catch. Even if the AI shows you its work, it's still reasoning from inside that same locked library. The logic might look absolutely perfect, but it could be based on information that's just plain outdated or incomplete. It still can't check its facts, which leads right back to those confident hallucinations. So how do you finally give that brilliant student a key to the library door and maybe the Wi-Fi password? That is precisely where the ReAct framework comes in.
The name itself really tells you everything you need to know. ReAct. It's a fusion of reasoning, that's the step-by-step thinking we saw with chain of thought, and acting, which is the brand new ability to use tools and interact with the world outside its own brain.
And this isn't just some minor update. It is a complete paradigm shift. The AI can now form a plan, realize it's missing a key piece of information, and then act by using a tool like a search engine. It can then take that new, verified knowledge and incorporate it right back into its reasoning. This is how you fight hallucinations, by grounding the AI's thoughts in external facts. So how does this new superpower actually work in practice? Well, it's modeled on a process that all of us use every single day.
Yeah, the entire process is modeled on how we as humans solve complex problems. We don't just sit there and think until we have the perfect answer. We think for a bit, we try something out, we see what happens, and then we adjust our thinking. It's a loop.
And here's the core cycle. It starts with the thought. For example, I need to find out the weather in London. That thought leads to an action, using a search tool. That action produces an observation, the search results. Now armed with new information, the AI can loop back to a new, more informed thought.
This creates a dynamic, self-correcting process. The AI's internal reasoning guides its actions, and the results of those actions constantly refine its reasoning. It becomes this incredible, virtuous cycle of thinking and doing. Okay, so this all sounds fantastic in theory, but does it actually perform better? Let's take a look at the data from the researchers who tested it. So they put ReAct to the test in two key areas. First, tasks that require finding and verifying facts, and second, complex tasks that require making a series of decisions to reach a goal.
On fact verification, the results are crystal clear. The old chain of thought method scored about 75% accuracy, but ReAct, with its ability to go search and verify, jumped all the way up to 87%. That's a massive improvement in reliability.
And for complex decision-making, the difference is even more stark. An AI that could only act but really reason had a really low success rate of 17%. But by adding the reasoning component, ReAct literally doubled the success rate to 34%. Thinking before you act? Well, it clearly pays off.
The proof is right there in the numbers. Giving an AI a toolkit and the ability to think about how to use it doesn't just make it a little better, it makes it dramatically more capable and trustworthy.
So, what does this all mean for the future of artificial intelligence? Let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture.
So if you remember anything from this explainer, let it be this. The old locked brain AI is prone to making things up. ReAct is the key that unlocks it, allowing it to both reason and act through a simple but powerful loop. And the end result is an AI you can actually start to trust.
And that leaves us with a final, kind of provocative thought. We've seen how powerful this is when an AI can act in the digital world of search engines and websites. But what happens when that ability to reason, plan, and act extends into our physical world? That's a question we'll all be exploring very soon.